Marc is the founder and CEO of Global Bioenergies, a company he started in 2008 to produce biofuels. The company has since grown up a lot, secured a lot of investments, over 30 million euros, and also secured important collaboration with international companies like the car manufacturer Audi. So Marc, first question. I let you drink. First question, can you tell us more about your technology and how you produce isobutene?
Thank you for inviting me. Hello, Paris. Maybe first I should correct a few points in the little introduction you made. So in fact, we're two founders. So I'm not the only founder of Global Bioenergies. We're two founders, two scientists turned entrepreneurs. My partner is named Philippe Marlière. He's really more scientist than entrepreneur, while I'm more entrepreneur than scientist. It's his idea, Philippe Marlière's ideas that we are developing. I'm in fact the doer in this story. I'm a little bit like the filmmaker, and he would be the scenarist. So we started in 2008 with the idea of producing hydrocarbons in a renewable way. So hydrocarbons are usually extracted from oil. You know hydrocarbons because it's the fuels, gasoline, jet fuel, and diesel. But it's also all the materials, the plastics, the elastomers, the rubbers we're using in the everyday life. And it's also a lot of products in the fine chemicals and even in the cosmetics that are derived from oil. Our intention is to produce exactly the same compounds, meaning real gasoline, real jet fuel, real plastics, real rubbers, exactly the same molecules, but from renewable feedstocks. And when I'm saying renewable feedstocks, we usually divide the feedstocks into 3 generations. First generation being the feedstocks coming from agriculture, like sugar beets. In fact, it's sugar beet molasses, the byproducts, like cereals, especially corn in the US. That's the first generation. There has been a lot of debate about should we use these first generation feedstocks for the fuel and for the commodities at a large scale or not. And the debate is still open. And people are more and more turning, and so are we, to the second and even the third generation. So the second generation is based on using agricultural waste and also forestry waste. Agricultural waste, it's wheat straw, for example, or bagasse extracted from sugar cane. There are a lot of sugars embedded in these materials that can be used not for food but for industrial applications, to give them to microorganisms for the bugs, to convert these into various products of industrial interest. And now there is also a third generation emerging. The third generation is based on the use of really non-agriculture, non-vegetal products. It's based on the use of industrial outflows, like the gases coming out of the steel mills, for example. In a steel mill, you use a lot of coal, and most of the coal is going out through the chimney as CO2 or CO, so carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide, and you can use these compounds to feed bugs as well. So we're using all these feedstocks, first, second, and third generation, to produce a building block of the chemical industry named isobutene. And this isobutene molecule is a 4-carbons molecule. Today it's extracted from oil. And it's a platform molecule in the sense that from isobutene you can easily manufacture gasoline, jet fuel, rubbers, and plastics, and also a wide range of cosmetics and of fine chemicals. And so we're producing this isobutene, which is today a molecule extracted from oil, 20 million tons per year. It means about roughly 20 billion euros. So the existing market of isobutene is 20 billion euros from, based on oil. And today we're able to produce isobutene, the very same molecule, but using the different feedstocks I told you about. And we then use this isobutene to go all through the value chain, and we have a partnership with Audi, for example, the car manufacturer on gasoline. I'm answering all your questions. Yeah. Sorry.
So just let's stay on the generations of biofuels. You are currently using the first generation, so your process is competing with food production. How will you overpass this in the future, and do you think it's sustainable in a way to do first generation biofuel?
So that's true that we're using first generation, but we're also using second and even third generation already in our developments. So our process today is not commercial, so we don't have a commercial plant ongoing, but we really made a lot of a long journey from the lab. So we started in a lab, learning bugs, how to produce isobutene. So we rewrited the software of bugs. So we encoded in their DNA all the metabolic pathway to go to isobutene. And now these bugs can produce isobutene in a fermentation process. So we went from the lab. 2 years ago, we started a pilot in France, in eastern France, close to the city of Reims. So this pilot is located on a large industrial plant belonging to Cristal Union. The city is named Pomac. It's 20 kilometers north from Reims, and it's the largest sugar mill in Europe. And so we started this pilot 2 years ago. Now we can produce batches, and we've been able to attract various industrialists. I'm not answering your question. That's
go on.
And so we started several partnerships on the basis of this pilot. And the breaking news right now is that we're moving to a demo plant, which is the last step before the commercial plant. And we announced last week that our demo plant now is fully built. So it took us 18 months and 10 million euros to build this demo plant in Germany, on the site of the refinery, of the Leuna refinery, close to Leipzig in Germany. And this demo plant is expected to start its operation within weeks.
Why Germany? Is it linked also to your partnership with Audi?
So it's not formally linked to our partnership with Audi, but in fact, when we set up the strategy to step out of the lab and come closer and closer to the commercial exploitation, we did a lot of studies. We analyzed over 100 sites, both in the US and in Europe, and we selected these two: one in France, in an upstream site on a sugar plant, and one in Germany on a downstream site, a refinery, where people know a lot about how to use the hydrocarbons for fuel and commodities, for the production of fuels and commodities. And so we thought that this would really be complementary to have these both sites, one in France, one in Germany. Another reason we went to Germany is that France gave us a lot of money to start our pilot, and they would not have given another subsidy for a demo plant, while Germany was looking for people to promote and develop the industrial biology in the country. And so we were able to secure a large subsidy, 6 million euro, to finance the construction of this demo plant.
And this facility in Germany is like 1,000 liters or more? Like, what's the size of this facility in Germany in terms of production?
So this demo plant will allow us to produce 100 tons per year. So it's already a nice volume. And this is necessary for us to build the credibility in the community of in the industrial community. Large industrialists are not so much convinced when they see results coming from a lab, and they really become convinced when you say, look, that's a demo plant. You can have a ton scale batch for doing the testing. And within 3 years, we're going to be able to produce commercial quantities calculated in thousands of tons.
Okay, let's change a bit the subject. I have a question. I think we are asking you a lot.
Yeah, maybe to complete on our way to the commercialization. So we mentioned the lab, we mentioned the pilot in France, we mentioned the demo plant, but the next step is a commercial plant, and we have a project, in fact, together with Cristal Union. Cristal Union is the number 2 in the sugar industry in France. You probably know them from their main brand, which is Daddy Sucre. You know, the pink packs. And so Cristal Union is the sugar player in eastern France, and we have started a joint venture with them to build and exploit a full-size plant within a few years. Of course, there is a lot of steps to go through before we're able to build this plant. We first need to have the demo plant giving the results and saying, well, it works well at demo scale. And then we will need to raise 100 million euro to build and start the operations of this commercial plant.
100 million, you said?
100 million, which could look a large amount, but in fact, when you're talking about that type of infrastructure investments, it's not so much. If you in the field of energy, you always read in the newspapers that the new EPR from Areva is going to cost 10 billion euro. Yeah. Here we're talking about 100-fold less, and so that's in fact a small plant for the world of energy and commodities.
Okay. One major problem the biofuel industry has right now is the price of the fuel. So since 2015, the price is completely falling down. Today it's under $50 a barrel. How do you face it, this competition?
So that's true that life was much easier 3 years ago when the price of oil was at $120 per barrel. Now we're in another situation where we read in the newspapers that there is oil everywhere, that Iran is coming back, that the Saudis are producing more, that the shale oil is producing more and more. And so the market is really depressed, and the oil price went lower than $50 per barrel for over 1 year now. In fact, what we see is in the field of this industrial biology, in this field of industrial biology, which is a small field. You have several tenths of players that are really working to bring new processes for fuels and commodities. In this field, we saw 2 types of reactions. One reaction was really to go away from the competition with oil. So several of our partners, competitors, and really moved to applications where the prices are much higher, like in the fragrances, in the fine chemicals, and maybe that's a good choice. But the problem being that in this field, you're not really changing the world. You're inventing a new fragrance or producing it renewably. That's not so much a big deal, in my opinion. And then there is a second set of companies, including us, who said what we're doing and what we're going to be continuing for the next years is to contribute to the energy transition. The energy transition will be needed, not only because of the end of easy oil production, but also because of the climate change concerns. When you burn oil, you produce a lot of CO2, and when you use a biofuel or biomaterials, you're producing far less CO2. You divide the CO2 produced by 2 to 5, And that's very important in this in the situation where we are now, where the global temperature is really going up very quickly, and where everyone knows now that it's linked to the CO2 produced by our industries.
What about electric cars? Is it a concern for you? I mean,
yeah. So maybe I have not completed my my answer to the competition with oil. I think what we saw this year in 2016 is that the price of oil went very low, $26 per barrel on the 20th of January. And the reason I really keep this date in mind, it is because that's the date we had chosen far in advance for raising funds. So we had to raise funds. We're a public company, so our shares can be acquired by everyone. But still, we're used to raising funds on the markets. And when you pick a date, there is a lot of administration, and you cannot change the date you have chosen. And so I remember stepping on stage in front of all the financial community. This very same day, the price of oil was at the lowest. And in fact, we succeeded in raising funds. And this shows that the financial community in Paris really trusts the fact that what we're doing is really useful. Not only because it lowers the emissions of CO2, but also because the situation regarding oil is far from being solved. And what we see since January is that the price of oil is growing. It's still very volatile, but it's growing, and we can expect that the bottom happened in 2016, and that the future will be brighter.
What about electric cars?
So electric cars. So we're talking a lot about electric cars these days, and they're getting a lot of traction. People are buying electric cars everywhere on the planet, especially in China. And what we see is that electric cars will really take a part of the transportation. In fact, for us, it's pretty much sure that electric cars will be used massively for urban transportation. It's a little bit like what we see here in France with the blue car. There are different systems in different countries, but this works well. There is no reason not to use these electric cars. For long distance transportation, the question is very different. In fact, there is a question of cost, and there is a question of autonomy. So you can see that cars are coming with a longer autonomy, but it's still not huge. People are talking about 400 kilometers, but that's 400 kilometers if it's flat, if the weather is not too cold, because else you need to heat your car and it pumps on the battery. If it's too hot, you need the air conditioning, and it pumps on the battery as well. So the reality is that it will not be easy on the short term to go for holidays in Chamonix in winter with an electric car. And what people are what I see the society, the movement of the society is really going to me in the direction where people will have in families one thermal car, normal car using gasoline, which is polyvalent, and one electric car just for commuting to the working place. And this second car of family is about 15 to 20% of the cars in the world. So what I see is that electric cars will take a stake within a few decades of something like 20% maximum of the market, coming from something like 1% today. So that's electric cars will grow, but they will not really penetrate the complete market of cars.
Okay. Yeah. We have time for one question. If someone has any question? Can raise your hands. I have another one.
So maybe I have another comment. Maybe I would like to say that our story has really been a very an entrepreneur journey, starting really from the garage situation, And we've seen that we've been able to attract more and more credibility, especially from the financial place and also from the industrialists, when we've been able to move forward in the scaling up of the process. And so you mentioned Audi, so we're working on a new concept with Audi, using renewable gasoline in a system where they would produce specific cars to commercialize this renewable gasoline through a complex business model. Maybe it's not the place to go in too much details about it. So there is it's a 5 years partnership now with Audi. We also attracted a lot of people from Sweden. Sweden, as you know, is the country which chose to really completely step out of fossil fuels and commodities. So Sweden is saying in 30 years we will not use oil anymore. And so we have a collaboration with Prem, the main oil player in Sweden. Prem is a little bit the Total of Sweden. We have a partnership with a forestry player to extract the sugars and manufacture commodities and fuels from these forestry waste. We have another partnership with a small company named Aspen, part of a large group in the specialty fuels, especially for marine engines, the harbor, you know, you have in your small boats. And so that's pretty much we have partnerships in France with Arkema and L'Oréal. And so we see that we have a community of industrialists building up around us, and both in France, in Germany, and in the Scandinavian area. And we expect that this community will continue to build up once our demo plant will be up and running, meaning within weeks now. And we expect that 2017 will be a great year for us.
Thank you, Marc. We are running out of time, so that was the last comment, actually. Thank you very much. I hope Global Bioenergies will be able to do something great in the future with this process. So yeah, thank you all of you, and please applause for Marc.